No one could save this starship until a human mechanic made it the ultimate weapon. Once it had been the ultimate weapon of the galaxy, feared by all who saw it. Now it was abandoned. No fleet dared to approach, no engineer dared to try. Legends said it was cursed, broken beyond repair, and that no living being could awaken its power again. In the nearby system, a small salvage ship hummed quietly as it approached the drifting giant. Its pilot, Eli Core, a human mechanic of modest reputation, tightened his grip on the controls. Eli had always been drawn to old, broken things. He had a knack for fixing what others thought impossible. Some called it stubbornness, others called it genius, most simply called it human audacity, something alien engineers had never learned to respect. Eli had heard rumors about this starship. Stories from scavengers, traders, and old star maps spoke of its incredible size, its strange technology, and the countless alien crews who had tried and failed to make it work. But to Eli, the stories were not warnings, they were invitations. If anyone could fix a starship like this, it would be him. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," Eli whispered, his eyes scanning the enormous hull. The ship's surface was pitted with age and battle scars. Massive panels hung loose, wires snaked like vines over its frame, and here and there, the faint flicker of dying lights hinted at systems that still struggled to stay alive. Eli maneuvered his small ship close and docked at a maintenance port that had long been ignored. The docking sequence completed, and he floated inside the giant vessel, airlock sealing behind him. The interior was dark and cavernous. Dust drifted in slow, lazy clouds. The smell of old metal and ozone filled the corridor, and faint creaking echoed as the massive ship shifted slightly, as if waking from a long sleep. He activated his helmet lights and began walking through the corridors. Everywhere he looked, he saw signs of failure. Broken consoles, shattered displays, and alien scripts etched into walls he could barely read. But he also saw possibilities, panels that could be reconnected, circuits that could be rerouted, engines that could be restarted. His human mind raced, already plotting repairs. And then something unexpected happened. A faint glow appeared in the ship's central chamber, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. Eli froze. It was subtle at first, a flicker of light from a console. But the glow intensified, forming patterns that looked almost like language, though alien beyond comprehension. Then a voice, low and mechanical, resonated through the chamber. Not a voice in words, but a sequence of tones that somehow carried meaning. "Who approaches the dead giant?" Eli's heart skipped a beat. The ship was alive, not just a machine but something more. He stepped carefully toward the console, touching the smooth surface. The tones changed, faster now, almost playful. "You think you can awaken me?" I can try," Eli said, speaking aloud even though he wasn't sure the ship could understand him. But to his surprise, the tones shifted again, slower this time, almost considering. The ship had been waiting. For centuries, perhaps millennia, it had been abandoned, drifting alone in the void, hoping someone would come, someone clever, someone daring, someone human. Eli didn't know this yet, but the ship had intelligence, though alien and strange. It tested him, sending electrical surges, creating puzzles in the broken systems, and challenging him to reconnect circuits in sequences no one had ever tried. Each test pushed his skills and patience. But Eli was not discouraged. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. He touched panels, rerouted energy flows, and whispered encouragement as if the ship were a stubborn student. Hours passed. Days might have passed. Time felt strange inside the enormous hull. Eli barely noticed as he solved one problem after another. Slowly, the ship responded. Lights glimmered to life in hallways, engines hummed faintly, and systems that were silent for centuries began to move. It was awakening, but it was also testing him. Suddenly, the floor trembled. A massive section of the hull had sustained critical damage, and without immediate stabilization, The ship might collapse under its own weight. Eli ran to the engineering bay, his human instincts kicking in faster than any AI protocol could. He rigged temporary supports, reinforced damaged conduits, and used every trick he had learned over years of working on smaller ships. Sweat ran down his face. His fingers were raw, but he did not stop. Finally, the tremor subsided. The ship had accepted his repairs. Not fully operational yet, but alive. And then a new sound, a low, resonant hum as if the starship itself was breathing. Eli stepped back, astonished. "Who are you?" The ship's voice pulsed in mechanical tones. "I'm Eli. I'm a mechanic," he said. It felt strange speaking aloud, but somehow necessary. The ship paused. Then it responded differently, almost with respect. "You think you can restore me?" "I can try," Eli said again, though now with more confidence. "But I need your help too. Work with me." For a moment, silence. Then the ship's systems flickered and energy began to flow through conduits that had been dead for centuries. "I will try," it said finally, and a wave of warmth, or what felt like warmth to a human, passed through the chamber. Eli knew he had crossed the first threshold. The ship was alive, and it had acknowledged him. But he also knew the galaxy would not leave them alone. Abandoned or not, such a vessel would attract attention. Other races had spies, fleets, and mercenaries who would see the ship as a prize, not a relic. And Eli was the first human to awaken it. As he explored further, he discovered a control room that was partially functional. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star charts, ancient battle records, and systems logs that no alien had been able to decode. The ship was not just a weapon, it was a library of knowledge, a guardian of secrets. And now, a human was inside, ready to unlock them. A sudden alert flashed on the main display. Eli frowned. Sensors indicated multiple large ships entering the system. Raider vessels, aggressive and fast, were heading straight toward them. The ship had awakened, but it was still vulnerable. Without the right defenses, it would be destroyed. Eli's mind raced. He looked at the ship systems, some functional, some damaged. If he could reroute energy, repair the weapon matrices, and synchronize with the AI, he might just stand a chance. It would be dangerous, almost suicidal. But humans thrived on danger. Humans thrived on ingenuity. And Eli Core was nothing if not human. He took a deep breath. "Let's get to work," he said, and the ship's AI pulsed in acknowledgement. The abandoned giant was no longer dead. And the galaxy had yet to see what a human mechanic could do. As the distant raider fleet approached, glinting coldly in the starlight, Eli worked tirelessly, guided by instinct, experience, and an unshakable belief that nothing in the universe was truly impossible. For the first time in centuries, the giant starship felt hope. And for the first time, the galaxy would learn that humans, small and underestimated, could change everything. The hum of the colossal starship filled the dark void as Eli Core moved through its vast corridors. Every step echoed against metal walls that had not felt life for centuries. The ship had awakened, partially alive, but it was still fragile. Most of its systems had only flickered into action, and any misstep could trigger catastrophic failures. Eli had little time to explore before the raider fleet arrived in the system. Outside, sensors blared warnings. The approaching ships were sleek, fast, and heavily armed. They had detected the dormant giant and saw a potential prize or a threat. Alien commanders would not forgive a human meddler in their affairs. Eli knew that his ingenuity, not brute strength, would be the only weapon to survive what was coming. He reached the ship's engineering bay, a massive chamber filled with dormant machinery, broken conduits, and alien devices beyond his immediate understanding. Sparks flickered from exposed panels. Humid vents hissed air and the floor trembled faintly with the ship's slow adjustments. The AI pulsed in rhythmic tones, almost like a heartbeat, its voice now clearer. "Ili, energy insufficient, weapon systems offline," it warned. I know, Eli said, wiping sweat from his brow. We'll get there. Just give me control where I can reach it. The AI's lights flickered in response. It had been alone for centuries, guided only by protocols and past battles. Now it had a human in its hull, touching, learning, and bending its systems in ways no alien could. The ship hesitated, uncertain of this strange, small creature, yet it began to cooperate. Eli moved from panel to panel, rerouting power through ancient conduits. Some circuits responded immediately, others resisted, like the ship testing him again. Each success brought a small wave of light across the massive interior, as if the vessel was slowly waking from a long dream. He began to realize that the ship was more than a machine. It was alive in a way he had never known. Hours passed. His hands were raw, but Eli refused to stop. The alien technologies were advanced, but the ship had limitations the aliens never understood. Humans, he knew, had the ability to think around obstacles. And this was exactly what he was doing now, using intuition, improvisation, and creativity instead of pure knowledge. Suddenly, an alert flashed. A raider ship broke through the system's outer defenses and was moving directly toward them. Eli ran to the tactical console. The ship's interface was alien, a complex network of holographic symbols and pulsing lights. He had begun to understand some of it, enough to see weapon alignments, shield pathways, and core energy flows. Eli threat, weapons offline, the ship pulsed urgently. I'm working on it, he shouted, connecting 3 circuits in a sequence no alien engineer had ever tried. Sparks shot across the console, lights flickered. The ship groaned as energy began to flow toward its primary weapons. Eli's heart raced. He was improvising, risking his life on intuition and instinct, but he was making progress. Outside, the raider vessel fired its first volley. The giant ship shuddered under the impact, hull plating groaning. Eli felt the vibrations through the floor as he recalibrated energy conduits. Not today, he muttered, rerouting power to strengthen the shields while simultaneously diverting some energy toward the partially active weapon systems. It was chaotic, dangerous, and thrilling. And slowly, the impossible began to happen. The weapon matrices, long dormant, sparked to life. Alien energy cannons powered up, shielding systems flared, and the massive Starship became more than just a drifting relic. It became a potential force. Eli's small crew of human technicians worked alongside him, floating through the corridors, assisting where they could. Each human was an expert in something, and together they acted with intuition and creativity, improvising on the spot. The AI, once cold and distant, began to respond to them, adapting to their methods instead of enforcing strict protocols. It pulsed with approval when they successfully repaired a system, and even offered subtle suggestions when they risked mistakes. The raider ships drew closer. A dozen vessels now filled the sensor arrays, their weapons aimed at the giant. Eli's human ingenuity had given the ship partial strength, but it was not enough to face an entire fleet. He needed a strategy, not just repairs. He scanned the alien interfaces and realized that the ship had hidden capabilities, long neglected because previous engineers could not understand them. This ship isn't just a weapon, he muttered. It's adaptable. He began rerouting energy in a radical way. Shields, engines, and weapons were linked into a single dynamic network. The ship would be able to move unpredictably, defend itself while attacking, and even outmaneuver smaller vessels despite its enormous size. It was risky. One miscalculation could overload the entire system, but humans thrived on risk. Eli caution, instability, the ship's voice warned. I know, but I trust us, he said, connecting the final circuit. Lights pulsed rapidly through the hull, energy surged. The ship's AI began to understand his plan, assisting with power adjustments and anticipating potential failures. Together, human and Starship were creating something entirely new, a weapon the galaxy had never seen. The first raider vessel fired again. This time, the giant ship responded. Energy shields flared outward, absorbing the blast while the partially active cannons targeted the attacker. The human modifications worked. The raider ship staggered under the unexpected precision of the giant starship's counterattack. Eli grinned. "You see that? We're learning together." Hours of battle followed. The raider fleet was relentless, testing the limits of the giant. Eli and his crew moved tirelessly, rerouting power, repairing systems, and improvising solutions. Every success emboldened the AI, and every failure taught Eli something new. Slowly, the humans were proving themselves. The aliens who had dismissed them as weak, fragile, and unskilled could not have imagined the ingenuity they were witnessing. At one point, a massive energy cannon began to overload. Eli risked life and limb, crawling into the exposed conduits to manually stabilize the core. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the ship trembled violently. But with human determination and mechanical skill, he redirected the flow just in time. The cannon stabilized, firing with devastating effect against another raider vessel. "Humans," the AI pulsed almost reverently, "adapt faster than expected." Eli laughed despite the tension. "We have to. We survive by thinking, not by brute force." As the battle wore on, it became clear that the raider fleet was not prepared for what they faced. The giant ship, once thought broken and helpless, now moved with surprising agility. Its weapons, guided by human ingenuity and alien intelligence, struck with precision. The humans had turned what was abandoned into a living, fighting entity. But victory was not guaranteed. The raiders adapted quickly, forming strategies and targeting the ship's newly patched weaknesses. Eli realized that they had only survived the initial encounter. The real challenge would be pushing the ship beyond its limits, unlocking capabilities that no one, alien or human, had ever imagined. He paused for a moment, looking around the enormous chamber. The crew was exhausted but determined. The ship hummed with life, responding to human improvisation. Together, they had survived the first wave, but Eli knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would not leave them alone, and the abandoned giant, now alive, would soon become a focal point for those who underestimated humans. Eli's mind raced. He began plotting modifications, new energy routes, and defensive innovations. The ship was learning from him, and he was learning from it. This partnership, human and Starship, was something entirely new. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and brilliant. And it might just be the edge humans needed to survive in a galaxy that had never taken them seriously. As the distant raider fleet regrouped beyond sensor range, Eli took a deep breath. He knew the next encounter would push them to the absolute limit. But for the first time in centuries, the giant starship had a chance, not because of alien technology, not because of brute force, but because a human mechanic dared to try. And humans never gave up. Eli Kor stood in the command chamber of the colossal starship, his eyes fixed on the distant point of light growing steadily on the sensors. The raider fleet was returning, larger and more determined than before. Their first encounter had been a surprise. They had not expected the abandoned giant to move or fight. But now they were prepared. Outside, the void was quiet but tense. The human crew moved efficiently, checking systems, monitoring energy flows, and assisting Eli where needed. Every action they took was precise. Every decision could mean life or death. And for the first time, Eli felt the weight of responsibility not just for himself, but for the ship itself. The ancient AI had begun to trust him, to respond to his commands, and to follow his instincts. "Eli, fleet approaching, estimate, 6 minutes to engagement," the ship pulsed. "I know," Eli replied, his voice steady. "Get ready. We're going to show them what humans can do." The ship's AI flickered with an emotion Eli could only describe as anticipation. Together, they began the final modifications, connecting the weapon systems, energy shields, and engines into a fully synchronized network. The ship shuddered as power surged through its core, humming with potential. For centuries, no one had been able to unlock its full capabilities. Now humans were doing it. Eli turned to his crew. "Listen carefully. We have one chance to surprise them. Follow my instructions exactly and trust the ship. It listens to us." The raider fleet appeared on the horizon, sleek ships bristling with weapons. They fired first, testing the giant's defenses. Energy blasts slammed into the shields, and the hull groaned under the force. But the shields held, reinforced by the new energy routing Eli had implemented. The raiders were stunned. The ship had not only survived their attack, it had adapted instantly, predicting the trajectory of incoming fire and adjusting shields dynamically. Eli's mind raced. Divert power to the forward cannons. Concentrate energy on the first two ships. Let's see how they like a taste of the impossible. The ship responded immediately, lights and conduits pulsing as energy flowed to the weapon arrays. The forward cannons glowed bright and fired in perfect synchronization. The first raider ship exploded in a blinding flash. The remaining vessels hesitated, shocked at the precision and power of the once-abandoned giant. "Excellent," Eli muttered. "Keep pushing." The ship moved with a fluidity no one would have expected. Its enormous size seemed to vanish as it twisted, turned, and maneuvered with a combination of alien engineering and human intuition. The raiders tried to flank them, but the giant anticipated every move. Every volley they fired was countered with deadly efficiency. Eli guided the ship through complex maneuvers, his hands flying over the controls. The crew followed his instructions, repairing minor damages in real time, rerouting energy and maintaining shields. It was chaotic, intense, and terrifying, but the humans were relentless. They did not panic, they adapted, they improvised. One raider ship managed to get close, attempting a boarding maneuver. Eli's eyes narrowed. "Not on my watch," he said. He activated a system the AI had been reluctant to reveal, a series of automated defense drones, repaired and repurposed under Eli's guidance. The drones swarmed the raider, disabling it without endangering the ship. The AI pulsed, a silent approval of Eli's creative solution. The battle raged for hours, or at least it felt that way inside the massive vessel. Energy surges, explosions, and alarms filled the corridors. The human crew moved tirelessly, repairing, adjusting, and guiding the ship through what seemed impossible. And slowly, the tide began to turn. The raider fleet, confident at first, was now losing vessels at an alarming rate. Their formations broke under the unpredictable maneuvers of the giant starship. Eli's strategy was simple but effective. Use the ship's size to intimidate, its power to dominate, and human ingenuity to adapt faster than the enemy could anticipate. Each move was unconventional, impossible by alien standards, but perfectly suited to the ship's capabilities under human guidance. Finally, the flagship of the raider fleet came into view, a massive ship twice the size of the others, bristling with weapons. It was their last chance. Eli's hands tightened on the controls. "This ends now," he said. The AI responded in a tone Eli understood as determination. Together, they executed a maneuver that no alien engineer would have ever imagined. The giant starship accelerated, weaving through the void with impossible agility. It dodged the flagship's first volleys and responded with precise strikes. Each shot disabled engines, destroyed weapons, and forced the flagship into retreat. The remaining raiders, seeing their leader fall, began to scatter. The battle was over. The abandoned giant, now fully alive and fully weaponized, had not only survived but triumphed. And all of it was because of humans, the smallest, underestimated species in the galaxy, whose creativity and courage had turned legend into reality. Eli exhaled, exhausted but elated. "We did it," he said. The ship's lights pulsed warmly, and for the first time, Eli felt a connection not just to the machinery, but to the AI itself. They had become partners, equals in strategy and ingenuity. After the battle, the galaxy began to notice. Alien factions that had once ignored humans now sought them out, curious and cautious. They had witnessed a human mechanic take an abandoned giant starship, understand it, and turn it into the ultimate weapon. Humans, once dismissed as fragile and weak, were now feared and respected. Eli explored the ship further. Hidden chambers revealed technology and knowledge long forgotten. Ancient star maps, records of battles, and blueprints of even more advanced systems awaited his attention. The ship had not just been a weapon, it had been a guardian, a vault of wisdom, and now it had a human partner. "I suppose we have work to do," Eli said, smiling at the AI. "We will protect," the ship responded. Its voice was no longer mechanical and distant. It had character, personality, and a new purpose. Together, they would defend the innocent, explore the unknown, and show the galaxy that humans were more than just clever, they were capable of greatness. News of their victory spread. Humans across star systems were celebrated not for brute strength, but for courage, intelligence, and problem-solving. For once, the galaxy could see what humanity had always known. Small, underestimated, and unpredictable, humans could overcome the impossible. Eli and the giant starship became legends. They patrolled systems, helping worlds in danger, solving crises that no one else could, and always proving that the human spirit was a force no technology, or alien arrogance, could ignore. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Eli looked out from the command chamber. The void was vast, full of dangers and mysteries, but he no longer felt small. He had awakened a giant, faced impossible odds, and survived. And more importantly, he had shown the galaxy the brilliance and resilience of humanity. The abandoned giant had found life again, and the galaxy had found a new hero in a human mechanic who refused to give up. Eli smiled. The stars shone brighter than ever. And the adventure, he knew, was just beginning.